Major League Soccer is back. New York City FC is back. Maxi Moralez is back. I'm Glenn Crooks, Roberto Abramowitz on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy.
Tiene el tiro y gol! ¡Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, you've got your radio voices for New York City FC here. Roberto on the Spanish side, myself on the English side, and we're going to be able to call a game. We haven't done that in a while, Roberto. It's been a 16-day absence for New York City FC from the game day and also the radio airwaves. It was a break that wasn't intended, but it's the loss to the New York Red Bulls in the League's Cup, which set in motion what Nick Cushing today. We are at the training facility. It's after training on the Saturday leading into the Sunday match against Minnesota United. But he called it a mini preseason when they went away to Austin. They did go to Austin. They got on a couple of charters last minute kind of and got to Austin to play a friendly, but also have this little preseason.
Yeah, and it helps because they needed to get all the new guys, and they're 6 new guys all told, and get them some minutes and get them ready and get them playing with each other. And it was interesting because New York won the game 2-1, and they beat Austin, but it wasn't a 90-minute game. There were four 30-minute quarters. That's how the game was played.
No, they played 2 45s and an extra 30, didn't they? Isn't that
according to Maxi Moralez, he said that they played.
Well, coach says one thing, the player says the other.
Are we gonna start trouble already?
No, Maxi just got back and he's countered his coach. No, we're going to get to what Maxi Moralez had to say to Roberto in particular. Got the chance to sit and speak with him. He also had the presser today, did Maxi Moralez, along with Nick Cushing. And then I did my one-on-one with Nick for our pregame show where we got into some things extensively, including this friendly in Austin. And yeah, I talked about 3 newcomers because I was concerned with Julian Fernandez, Alonso Martinez, and Burke Risa, mostly because they hadn't gotten into the country yet and were permitted to participate. 2 out of the 3 were in Austin. Alonso Martinez, in fact, scored the second goal.
Yes.
The game winner. Santi Rodriguez and Martinez scored in this 2-1 win. But then Maxi Moralez, he comes in, he's fine. And Andres Perea,
right?
And then Monsef Bakrar has obviously played a couple of games, so
yes,
he's not a new integration. But so the scrimmage was what I liked about it is that he got together with I'm forgetting the coach's name, of course, Josh Wolf.
Yes,
and they kind of decided how they were going to format the scrimmage, but also how they were going to play a little different systems, 5-back, 4-back, tried both of those with the newcomers. And so that's a really unique way to kind of utilize that break, I think.
It does. It sort of reminds me of like the planned scrimmages, not the games, the preseason games, but the planned scrimmages that they have in the NFL, and where they're going to decide how they're going to play, and sometimes they tell each other, what they're going to do, so they can prepare for that. And it's an interesting way of going about things. I mean, and Austin probably needs it more than New York City because they got smoked at home by Juarez and Mazatlan, which was definitely not part of what everybody thought was going to happen. Austin's having some major problems playing international games. Remember that they got eliminated. I can't remember the name of the team from Haiti, but they got eliminated from the Champions League with his team from Haiti, who obviously played pretty well, a hell of a lot better than Austin did. And even though they didn't even have a home game, because they played the home match, or for Austin, the away game, they played it in the Dominican Republic. So, and they still wind up not winning. So, they've had their issues. So they needed it probably more than New York City did.
Well, I don't know. Not when you look at MLS regular season standings. Austin in the Western Conference is in 5th place. They're in a good playoff position in the middle of the playoff crunch, 5th out of the 9 teams that can go to the playoffs. They only have a 4-point lead on 10th place Minnesota, who we're going to talk about in a moment, with a guy who we feel knows the Minnesota United squad almost better than anybody, Bruce McGuire. He's going to be joining us. Meanwhile, New York City's 13th place. They've got to leapfrog 4 teams in order to get a playoff berth over these last 10 games.
And not only that,
I think going to Austin was more important for New York City than it was for Austin to welcome them.
Well, so here's the situation. Not only does New York City have to jump 4 teams, they have less games to do it, because New York City only has 10, 7 of them at home. So that might wind up helping, although they haven't played very well at home lately. So they haven't won a game at home since they beat Dallas on April 22nd. That seems like many moons ago. But the issue is, not only do they have to jump 4 teams to get to 9th place, right, but they also have to check their rearview mirror, because Inter Miami with Messi just don't lose, and they've got a lot of games to go, so they can jump into this really in a hurry. They've only played so they've got 18
matches,
points,
so they've got 12 to go.
Yeah, they've got 12 to go, and so New York City has 10 to go. Charlotte has 11 to go. The Red Bulls have 11 to go. Montreal has 11 to go. And DC has 10 to go, and they're in 9th place. That's what everybody's shooting for. And you can also shoot for Chicago, I guess, who has 32 points, and they have 11 to go. So that's going to be the playoff race. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, we hope.
Yep. Before we bring Bruce in, let's go over a little bit more of what Nick said, and then also Maxi Moralez, who it was I posted it was a bit surreal to see him on the training pitch for New York City. We didn't expect him to ever come back and play. Neither did he, though. That's one of the things
Yes.
he said in the presser. He said, I expected to finish off my career at Racing, but I wasn't playing. I wasn't getting the kind of playing time I wanted. And he also said something without being specific about, and the country wasn't the same. We know, he's got a young family, and I wonder what role that might have played in his return.
There is a difference in pressure and in passion level when it comes to soccer in Argentina and soccer in the United States. And part of the reason a lot of players like to come here is because if they lose a game, they can still go to the supermarket the next day and go buy a quart of milk if they need to do that, and they're going to be fine. And in Argentina, that's just not the case. I mean, they know where you live, and if you're not playing very well, I mean, they can literally be outside your house and demanding, why didn't you play better? That's what they talk about, pressure. And I don't think that that's a positive. There's a lot of people in South America, especially, believe that sort of pressure, that the media is on top of you all the time, that they're criticizing you almost on a personal level, and that the fans are, stoning your house and stoning your car if you don't play well, that all that pressure is good for you, that you'll play better if you have that pressure. And I absolutely don't believe it, and that's why a lot of players come over here, aside from the fact that they get paid every 2 weeks, which is also a different sort of pressure than you have in Argentina and a lot of teams and a lot of teams in Latin America. You get paid. You have that sort of pressure where everybody's on top of you, and it's not maybe the best situation for your family.
Yeah.
So we know his wife loves New York City. She's expressed that many times, and they love the city. And so Maxi is back, and it's great.
And he seems happy to be back. And as far as whether he'll play tomorrow or start tomorrow against Minnesota, again, we're recording this on Saturday afternoon from the training facility in Orangeburg, New York, post-training. Nick Cushing just said every time he's asked Maxi Moralez about playing ever since he was an assistant to Ronnie Dyla and then became the interim head coach, and then now the head coach of Maxi Moralez, Maxi always says, "I'm ready, coach." So I'm not going to be shocked if he's in the 11. We don't know the 11, and we're going to just maybe try to sort out who we might think will be in that 11. But
that's going to be a little bit fun for us. Right. So here's the thing, right? So normally, or 90% of the time, we get the lineup a couple of days ahead or a day ahead. Yeah, and so we know
really what's going to. We really don't know this time.
So we have no idea for tomorrow. We didn't ask, and it wasn't volunteered.
That's right. We didn't really,
so our speculation here is our speculation, and it's not what I would say. Intelligent speculation based on the fact of knowledge, just on what we really feel. So we'll go through that after we speak with Bruce, I guess, because we can't have him on hold for too long. But
he can handle it.
I know. It's nice in Minnesota. You want to get out because then after, like I think in a couple of weeks it starts snowing over there, and so we got to be respectful of that.
The one thing, and so does Maxi play? He's going to play a role over these last 10 games. There's little question about that. But how you sort out all these new players, and it's certainly a question of connectivity and bringing these players together and figuring out maybe a lineup in the presser. I thought it was a good question asked about, are you going to try to sort out who your best 11 is and go that way? We talked about that in our last pod here on NYCFC Views. By the way, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to Apple, and subscribe to Spotify. But I ended up asking about goalkeeper because that's another thing we talked about last time. And it's my feeling that pick one and go with them through the final 10 games. Nick agreed to a point, but if somebody drops in form, whoever gets the job on whoever's named against Minnesota, and we don't know and we observed some of training, and there was no indication as to who it could be. Whoever gets chosen is their thinking as a staff this is the guy that's going to get us through the rest of the season. But if there's a massive dip in form, they'll make the change. That's pretty much the way he put it.
There is no number one. I mean, he said it all year long. There is no number one. There's a preferred keeper at this point, which has been Luis Barraza throughout most of the season, but he hasn't hesitated in making the switch. And
Matt Freese got the last two games.
And the only goal he gave up was a penalty kick. So I mean, it's sort of hard. It's sort of hard to say, by the way, you got a shutout and a penalty kick last two games, but I'm going with the other guy, but I think it's going to happen.
I do too. Just because of the way New York City wants to play and prefers to play, with the keeper high off the line, being part of the that back group in terms of the build out and that sort of thing. And I think that I think that just overrides the option to start Matt Freese, even though he did pretty well over the last two matches. As I said last time, that the shutout against Toronto, you or I could have been sitting in between the posts and probably gotten a clean sheet against Toronto. Ouch. There was one good stop in there. I'm just saying that was not a particularly challenging match. That was a 5-0 match in the Leagues Cup. The other thing Nick Cushing said about the goalkeepers, though, which I found pretty interesting, is he said, whatever happens the rest of this year happens, but going into next year, it'll be really important to name a number one for whoever is the number one keeper to be told that. Whoever's the number two, that player gets told that, and that's the way it is because it's two inexperienced keepers, and up to this point, neither one of them has really, really, really taken charge of that position. Hey, the opponent is Minnesota.
So let's go. Let's bring Bruce in.
So Minnesota United. What about? So 4 games have been played between these two sides, New York City and Minnesota. New York City has 2 wins, a defeat, and a draw. It was a New York City win last year. They played just last year. 3 of the 4 games have been played in Minnesota, and for the first time, Minnesota United is going to play at Citi Field. And sure enough, Bruce McGuire, let's bring him in. You may remember him of the Du Nord podcast. And this is a guy who has just followed the Minnesota sports scene, but in particular soccer and Minnesota United over the years. And sure enough, Adrian Heath today, in his presser, or maybe it was yesterday, I just saw it presented by Minnesota Today, talked about the baseball diamond, in his presser. So, Bruce, everybody seems to be all concerned about playing on a baseball field. How you doing, first of all?
Pretty good. I decided to wear my Minnesota Twins cap.
There you go.
Well done.
Just for the baseball aspect,
I was expecting you to wear something Prince, but Fine.
You know.
You've gone with the Twins.
I just decided since they're going to play in a ballpark, let's wear a ballpark hat.
All right.
So why is Yankee Stadium and Citi Field so much on the brain of every single coach? And again, it was mentioned by Adrian Heath.
I think it's because human nature is constantly looking for excuses for when things don't work. And so they bring up all those strange little points, anything that's slightly unusual, you know. If it had fake turf, they would bring that up. If it had American football lines, they would bring that up. And so they love to find these little things so that afterwards, when it doesn't go right, they can say, see, I told you.
Hey,
it wasn't my fault.
Artificial turf. We should just interject that Messi, in his first American presser, announced to the world that he'll have no issues playing on artificial surfaces because he grew up as a boy. That's all he played on. Now, he did say, I haven't played on in a long time, but Messi's playing in Atlanta and wherever else there's turf. But that was
Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah. That
And
was
New
interesting
England,
to hear.
I think is the other one.
Oh, they play in New England. Oh, all right. That's
it's I think it's a matter of mindset. It really is what it's all about. You know, I mean, he might feel different after he plays on a game on fake grass.
Well, especially when he goes to Gillette. He may
Right.
reconsider after he plays on the Gillette surface.
The Atlanta surface is sort of decent because Tata Martino, when he was coach of the Mexican team, and normally every time that they do their tours throughout the United States, wherever they play in, be it AT&T Stadium or any of the stadiums that have turf, they normally put in, real grass that has only been grown like for a couple of weeks, and, it's not stitched together properly, and those fields aren't necessarily very good. The ball doesn't bounce very well. And when they were going to play in Atlanta and they were going to put the field down, they said, no, forget it. We'll just play on the turf. We're fine. And that was like sort of surprising because we've never seen any Mexican coach do that. So he's more than comfortable on it. And I guess Messi's going to be fine as well, which is good to see.
It's great to see. Yeah. I never like hearing those pregame excuses.
So what of this Minnesota United team? I have to ask you about Reynoso because I don't know that whole story. Can you explain why he arrived so late to the scene? And it seems like he's certainly been welcomed back into the squad and has been their best player over the last few games.
It was a mystery to everyone except those on the inside the club. The only thing that's been said publicly is that it was a family issue.
Okay.
And I don't know what that exactly means. I do know that he has a wife and a young child. And when he first came here, they were not with him. And then last year they were with him. And I don't know if it had something to do with that, with them maybe not wanting to move back here again. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. But I do think it was a very heavy burden on him, whatever it was, because when he came back, he looked different. He had lost weight. You expect a guy who doesn't play for quite a while to have put on weight. He lost weight. And he had a real distinctive, I don't even know what the word is. I don't want to say gaunt look about him because when I ran into him the first days he was back, he had a huge smile for me and said hello and wanted to chat and all those things. So whatever happened, he worked it out. And he seems very, very happy to be back here. And his play has been better than it's ever been.
489 minutes in 7 games, 5 of them starts, 4 goals and an assist. And I think anyone who's observed the league, he's been a popular figure to be called, one of the, if not the best 10 in the league, along with Zelarayan, who's no longer here, Lucho Acosta, that sort of, in that sort of company. So it's massive for the club. Yes.
There's a 6 or 7 guys that every club would love to have as their number 10, I think. But it gave a huge boost to the whole team. And that was the other unknown is how would his teammates react with him coming back?
Yeah.
And from everything we've been able to see and tell, it's been great. And they gel and they're getting more and more time. I mean, during the Leagues Cup, he put up huge numbers. He had 6 assists in 5 games.
Well, it helps to pass the ball to Bangokukle Holongwani, right? So he's been he's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's really good on the ball. He's so quick. You guys found a diamond in the rough, if I may.
I think so, and he's also slightly unorthodox. And so he can turn players inside out because I'm not always sure he even knows what he's going to do next. And he's got that a little bit of a seat of the pants, attitude where he just goes. He gets that ball and he is coming at you. No matter what happens, he's coming at you. And when a player does that, and then they get the confidence on top of it, and they get passes from somebody like Reynoso, that's a really dangerous combination. It's great when you see a player like that just come out of their shell and come alive. And that's what this year has been. There was a lot of believers last year. I didn't quite see it, but as this year has gone on, it's gotten better and better and better week by week, month by month.
Now, another player that I think would draw a lot of interest, and we were here at the training facility today, and there were a couple of supporters who were asking about Tajiri Shradi, Ismail Tajiri Shradi, a recent acquisition, and he's got a goal and an assist in a couple of matches he's played in a reserve role. Is there any indication about how his role might develop over the last 12 games for Minnesota?
Well, they definitely need him because they're short in the attack, especially players that can actually make something happen. And he only played in 2 or 3 games, very, very limited minutes. But like you said, he had an assist the first time he was out there. He had a goal the second time he was out there. And then he had a hamstring injury and he hasn't played since. But they say he's fully healed and he's ready to go tomorrow. And we've all seen players play against their former team and how, that could be a great motivator for them. So I think there's a chance we see him. I would, they're playing him on the right side only so far, but it's only been 2 or 3 games. So we'll see if he can move around to the left side too and anywhere across the middle. There's no doubt he can be an impact player. We all know that. It's just a matter of consistency with him.
So your big impact player that was signed in the summer was an ex-Norwich player, which is Timo Pukki. He had a goal early on and then seems not to have fallen off a little bit. How do you see his play, and what does he need to do to get back on track?
Yeah, just the one goal in MLS and Leagues Cup. And that was, you're right, it was his first start he scored. I think
it was a good goal.
It was great.
It was.
And you watch him, when you sit in a stadium and watch, you see a different game than what you see broadcast on television, obviously. And you see him making great runs. He moves into space like a serious pro, a guy who's played in England for a long time. You know that they make the right runs, otherwise they wouldn't have kept those jobs. But it's a matter of them connecting with him. I think he may have lost a step in his speed, but there's a whole nother element of him coming off a full season. He had about a month off, and then he's thrust right back in. And I don't know if you guys watched Nashville over the last couple of weeks, but they brought in Sam Surridge.
He's the difference. I think he's one of the reasons they might be an MLS Cup title contender. It's another dimension for them that they didn't have, relying so much on Hani Mukhtar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to compare him to Pukki, but he hasn't started yet. It's all been off the bench.
Right.
To get him time to build up, get his conditioning right, get his teammates' timing right, and all those things. And I think it would have benefited Minnesota. I'm saying this in hindsight because now I look like a genius, but they would have been better easing him into the team rather than thrusting him right into the starting lineup.
Coaching point from Bruce McGuire. I like that, man.
They didn't have anyone else though that could really contribute from the start of a game, and so their hand was forced. But I think he needs more time. And anytime you sign a player in the summer, I never judge them until maybe 2 months into the next season when they've had some time off. They've gone through the full preseason, and by May 1st, if you've got a player or not.
Yeah, but isn't he? I did my charts this morning. Isn't he like 33 years old? He doesn't have a lot left in him, does he?
No, he is. Right. He might even be older than that.
No, he's 33. March 29th, 1990.
Yeah, and they didn't pay a transfer fee for him.
Mm-hmm.
So
which is good.
It is good, but that means there was no other teams competing for him, basically.
Hey, Bruce, I want to ask you about, and this is my final question, Adrian Heath. Yeah. I recall last year someone somewhat on the inside who had learned that he was going to be re-upped. They were going to extend his contract, and the this person said the supporters are going to go crazy. He's not a particularly popular figure there. Can you tell us why? Is it just the fact that he basically has a 500 record and they haven't really done much damage in the playoffs, or is it something about him? What is it about Adrian Heath?
There's a few little things. He's oddly twice he has said, "I don't understand why Americans are obsessed with substitutes," because he uses the least amount of subs in the whole league, and his players tend to get burnt out. They tend to get worn out, and I think the fans have gotten tired of hearing these odd little shots that he takes, especially at supporters and real hardcore fans. That I think the general fan likes him a lot, but I think in the United States, general fans like people in soccer that have an English accent.
No, there's always some bias there, as we've learned. So I have one last question for you. Minnesota has one of the best stadiums. They have amazing atmosphere, yet their record at home is worse than their record on the road. Why is it that this team thrives more playing away than in front of an amazing fan base that always turns out?
I don't know. I heard somebody once say that they love going to Portland as an away player because even the fans that are against them, a big revved up crowd really energizes them. And so, maybe part of that energy is going to the away teams. Minnesota's biggest problem this whole season has been a complete yo-yo. You just go down the list of all their games. They play great one game, bad the next, great, bad, great, bad, great, bad. It's up and down and up and down and up and down. And it hasn't seemed to matter where they put the performance in, if it's at home or on the road. So I think maybe it's just been more of a matter of timing than anything else, because they've had moments of looking great at home in every game, but there's some strange focus that they seem to lose. And that's been an issue of mine from day one since they joined MLS, is the team I don't think has a very good mental attitude.
Wow. Well, we had an interesting chat with Nick Cushing regarding his trip to Austin. And, he said that the coach there, why do I keep
Josh
blanking?
Wolf.
Josh Wolf. I keep blanking on Josh Wolf, one of our
it's
great
like me and
strikers.
David Lee, same thing.
But Josh Wolf told him on at least 2 occasions since he's played at the Q2 Stadium or coached there with his team, they've trailed by a goal and have either come back to tie or win the match purely because of the energy that the crowd produced. So it goes both ways, I think, It
definitely does. I mean, they've had a really good record at home through the first 4 years. And this is the first year when it's been very big question mark. And no one can pinpoint it. It's because the crowds this season have been bigger than any of the other seasons.
All right, Bruce McGuire, this guy, he knows Minnesota outside and in. He's worn his Minnesota Twins cap to designate the Citi Field Baseball Diamond Complex for the big match on Sunday night. Minnesota coming to visit New York City FC. Denord podcast. Bring it back someday, Bruce. What the heck? Come on, man.
We'll see what happens.
All right. But thank you so much for coming on and giving us some Minnesota insight.
I love talking to you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thanks so much for making the time for us.
Okay. Have a good one, Bruce. Bruce McGuire.
I told you that you were going to get like a massive preview. You knew that this is the go-to guy.
Yeah. So, the Adrian Heath part, you get the feeling that a lot of the supporters still are not big fans of Adrian.
Well, they weren't a big fan of him in Orlando either, by the way. And they ran out of my town. They ran him out of town.
I got a chance to observe him close up. I don't remember what match. It's while he was at Orlando, and he was like one of the biggest whiners I've ever seen as a coach. I mean, any level, anything. He was just whining the whole match, and it turned me off to him. But then one of the reasons I kind of like Adrian Heath, well, there's 2. One is Patrick Vieira, who I was very fortunate to be able to visit when he went to Nice. But the week before I got there, he had invited Adrian Heath in, and he told me he liked him. He was like a big supporter, good football man, so I thought, well, Patrick brings him in to learn from him. I think that's a pretty significant vote of confidence for Adrian
and
Heath.
good for you for allowing that to influence what you thought of him, because it's important.
no,
I mean, that's really good, because it shows that you have an open mind, and it's not like, well, this is what I think of him and that's that.
Yeah.
Somebody like Patrick Vieira says, by the way, I think this guy's bright.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, now I got to reconsider everything I thought.
But then you have to manage the whole situation too. So he might be able to bring good football insights and how he does things. The other reason I like Adrian Heath is because during the pandemic, Bruce Arena, and Gio Savarese drank about 22 bottles of wine after one of those matches in the pandemic, and I think Bruce Arena spilled the beans on that one. Bruce Arena, who the league, we still have no idea what's going on with Bruce Arena, which is I'm pretty perturbed by the fact that it's been lingering like this. These investigations. I mean, honestly,
well, they've got to be thorough. They've got to be thorough, and I get that part, and we become impatient because we want to know what's going on.
Hasn't it been about a month?
Yeah, but maybe they still don't have a full investigation.
I mean, well, the people they need to talk to are they are they away?
We don't know.
Are they
know.
on that SpaceX? Are they out of the
patience?
Oh my goodness! Well,
Patience.
I feel for Bruce, because to me it's when it lingers like this, it affects you, it affects your family,
of course.
And I think it's whatever happened. I think it's unfair that there hasn't been some sort of conclusion or communication or something about it.
Going back to Adrian Heath whining, as he put it. By the way, it was his words. I'm just quoting him.
Oh, he's a whiner. He's a big whiner.
Yeah, okay, so. One of the nicest guys in all of MLS is Gio Savarese.
Yeah.
Yes. Gio is one of the nicest guys.
Oh, you're going to go to a poolside chat. We had
a poolside chat with one of the referees in MLS, and it was a great chat. And he said there was nobody who was in his ear yapping more than Gio Savarese, and that he's known for it. Yeah. He's when I see Gio next time, or I'll speak to him. I'll have to ask him about that. Hey, I love
Gio. Yeah. I love Gio too, and we're normally we do the kicking it around segment, but we've kind of moved into that, and then we're going to close this thing. So don't think that you won't get that special graphic the next time. Why don't we just do it, and then we'll close the show. We're going to kick it around. Go ahead, Sammy.
The informality is the formality of the show.
To go back to Gio Savarese, we both love Gio. I want to talk about Miles Joseph just for a moment.
Fine.
Because my former collegiate program, Rutgers University, on the women's side, I was visiting them in preseason. You'll like this.
No?
And the head coach, Michael O'Neill, I'm having a dinner with the team, and they and Michael said, well, I've got to get going because I have a recruit on campus. And Mike goes to me, do you know Miles Joseph? I said, oh, yeah, we're friends. Great guy. He's out of Portland now. He goes, yeah, his daughter flew in tonight and is on an official visit at Rutgers University.
Oh, that's pretty
And she
cool.
committed to Rutgers.
All right.
So I was doing a BTM broadcast the other night, Rutgers opening game, and they won the match 2-0 against Holy Cross. And I get a text after the game from Miles saying, I guess I'll be listening to you for the next 6 years, because his daughter is not even coming in until 2025, which is the way recruited. But isn't that nice? Miles
That's
Joseph,
really sweet.
who was with the Red Bulls for a while, and he has some New Jersey stuff in him. His daughter will be Rutgers themselves cannot announce this, but I can as the former coach. Doesn't matter. We got the Women's World Cup.
Yes.
It's going to be 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. So you may hear this before it kicks off and ends, or you may hear this afterwards, but it's England against Spain. I thought interesting comments. You should know Nick Cushing. There are 4 players on the English national team that he coached at Manchester City when he was there for 7 years, winning trophies. And so he's had a distinct interest in the World Cup. He's watched every game. He's watched other games too. He's very invested in the women's game too. I don't know how he watched all of Ronnie Dyler's game with Standard Liège. I don't think he ever stops watching the game of soccer. And then Leagues Cup. Again, you may hear this before Leagues Cup kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern. But briefly on that, you've got Nashville playing host to Inter Miami or Inter Messi. And so what do you think about this game? So let's give our predictions, and then we'll see how we did when we reconvene early next week.
Okay, first, the most important news on that, which is for anybody who's in Nashville and
Tickets.
they're like, yes.
What do you
So
got?
on Ticketmaster, the cheapest ticket is $398, and I think that's an all-in price, but they add another fee of like $450 per se. And then if you use TickPix, okay, if you use them, it's $359 all in. All right, $359 all in is the cheapest price. The prices have been falling throughout
What
the
does
day.
all in mean?
All in means
Does
that you
it
don't have
include
to
all your
pay
fees and
all
stuff?
the fees and everything.
Okay,
So,
okay.
like if you go, for instance, StubHub and they say $320, and then you have a whole bunch of fees on top of that. So
All right.
be careful about all the fees and all that. Shop different, ticket. Apps. So right now, the best that I've seen is TickPick, TickPick, and $359 is the cheapest as of now. So if you're in Nashville or planning on flying down there within the next 10 minutes or so for the game tonight, then that's where you want to get your tickets. So that's that. So you're
right.
making us do predictions?
I think Nashville's going to win the game, and I think Messi's going to suffer his first loss. Busquets, Alba, Martino. I think the first loss in Leagues Cup.
Here's what the Mexican fans on my Facebook page are telling me. Okay, because they've said this is important. Understand? I want you to listen to this. This is what I've got to deal with. Okay,
I'm going to listen.
This is what I have to deal with on my Roberto Abramowitz Oficial, which is 1F. On Facebook. Okay. So the tournament was set up with the sole purpose of giving Messi a title. Okay. And referees have been favoring MLS teams so MLS teams can win. Okay. And this is all that they've been doing. This is what they're telling me. And then within the past 2 days, they've been saying some of them continue to say the tournament is fixed and it's set up for Messi. And then other people have now chimed in and said, no, the tournament is fixed and Nashville is going to win because they don't want it to look like they favored it for Messi. There's no losing. The tournament's fixed no matter what you do, which is ridiculous. It's absurd. But this is what they're telling me.
I'm trying to quickly look. To me, the story of this game, so everything's about Messi. The story of this game is a goalkeeper named Panico, a 12th overall pick out of UNC Charlotte, who's been in goal for Joe Willis, who's been away for personal reasons, and now Gary Smith, the head coach for Nashville, has to make this decision. Does he play Joe Willis, the veteran who's obviously done very well for them, or does he play this kid Panico, who has been sensational in particular in the penalty shootout to get them to this point?
Which, by the way, they've taken Willis out of games to put him in for the penalty shootout.
Fantastic.
Before Willis had to go away on personal things. So
to me, that's a huge decision. So who are you going to put in goal for that?
Right. So for this tournament, I'd probably go with Panico. And the reason I say that is that if you go with Panico, who obviously you trust, and if the game goes to penalty kicks, he's already there. If you use Willis, okay, and we have to understand that this tournament only has 3 windows. The halftime window, if you make a substitution at halftime, it counts as one of your 3 windows, which is different from MLS. MLS and Liga MX both have halftime as a extra window if you want to use it.
Yep.
So now you've got to save a window and you got to save a sub to put Panico in the 90th minute if it goes to penalty. So this way, I think that you have more options.
Does it go directly to penalties?
Yes.
The final as well?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
It would have to, right? If everything else is that way,
I would think. I don't know. I wish you hadn't asked me that question.
All right, I asked you. Neither one of us know, and there you go. We don't have all the answers here. Hey, let's we want to put a close on this. And Sam Surridge, 3 shots, 3 goals. I think he, along with this kid Panico, could hold the key to this match against Miami.
Miami's defense is awful. I mean, the fact that they beat Philadelphia was more Philadelphia imploding. And Andre Blake, who I love and I think is one of the great goaltenders of this league and maybe in the history of this league, had a horrific game. Horrific. I mean, saves that he would normally make in his sleep went by him and went into the back of the net. And that's why I think Philadelphia lost.
We don't use trite phrases here on NYCFC Views. Saves he would make in his sleep. We aren't used to using hackneyed phrases and trite phrases. So thank you, Roberto, for filling us up with Hackney. I'm sorry.
This is what I've got to put up with.
Hey, listen. So we will be back early next week, probably Monday, to review what happened Sunday night. We'll be there calling the game. Roberto in Spanish, myself in English, and I've really enjoyed being able to hang with you here. Thanks to Bruce McGuire also for adding his insight on Minnesota, the opponent for New York City FC on a Sunday night. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Enjoy the game, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.